rise. Oh yes, this Honorable Superior Court for the County of Wake is now convened and sitting for its regular dispatch of business. Honorable Judge Donald Stevens, President, presiding. Oh yes, God save this state and this honorable court. You may be seated.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, folks. The bailiff has declared that the Superior Court of Wake County is now in session. I'm Don Stevens. Thank you for coming to this very special event. This is an event that obviously marks a milestone in the lives of every new lawyer here. Every new lawyer is here today to take their oath of office, the oath for an attorney, an officer of the court. For each of these new lawyers, today marks, as we all know, an ending of learning how to be a lawyer and a beginning of the practice of law, which means that you continue to learn how to be a lawyer for the rest of your professional lives. The general statutes of this state specifically require that an attorney, before they shall be admitted to practice law, shall in open court, before a justice or judge of the General Court of Justice, personally appear and take the oath of office prescribed for attorneys by GS 11-11, and also the oath of allegiance to the state and to the Constitution of the United States, prescribed for all public officers by our Constitution. And it says, upon such qualification had and oath taken, may act as an attorney during their good behavior. This is the fifth time in our memory when the Superior Court of Wake County has convened at some place other than the courthouse for the purpose of administering oaths to attorneys. The inherent authority of the Superior Court has long been recognized in our appellate decisions, which permits a trial judge in very unique circumstances to convene court in a facility other than the courthouse. I have told this story on every occasion in which we've done this, and if you've been here the last 4 times, forgive me, but I will tell it again, because there's a purpose for the telling. In May, and we've all got our stories. Judge Becton has. We were all talking about, he and I were talking back in chambers about trying cases and school auditoriums and things like that, and a long time ago. But in May of 1986, as a relatively new Superior Court judge, I was commissioned by the Chief Justice to preside over a criminal case in the Superior Court of Madison County. And it was a case in which the defendant was accused of killing a trooper, a highway patrolman, on a routine stop on a lonely mountain road in Madison County. The Madison County seat is Marshall on the banks of the French Broad River. When I arrived in that Monday in 1986, Sheriff E.Y. Ponder met me at the courthouse steps, and the massive dome of the Madison County Courthouse was sitting in the parking lot. Sheriff Ponder told me that they were involved in a renovation. There was no Superior Courtroom. There was no chairs in the courtroom. There was no judge's bench. There was no jury box. We opened court in the Register of Deeds office, and then I made findings that the facility was inadequate, and we re-adjourned at the local schoolhouse in the auditorium, and I heard a motion for change of venue, which I allowed, and moved the case to Buncombe County, where we tried it for about 5 weeks. And the conviction of the defendant was upheld, and that issue was not raised on appeal. So for all you newly licensed young lawyers sitting out there who are saying, is this legal? Can the judge swear me in the auditorium of the North Carolina Museum of History and call it a courtroom? Well, the answer is yes. So you begin this journey into the practice of law, folks, the practice of law. You will find that all the answers aren't necessarily in the statutes. The practice of law is a journey into how the rules of law, the regulations, the statutes, and the legal concepts come together to work in a very complex world. So not unlike 1986 in Madison County, this afternoon at 12:45, I convene court in 10C of the Wake County Courthouse, which is one of about 20 courtrooms we have in that facility. I found that the facility was inadequate to conduct the ceremony, involving some 85 or 90 new lawyers and a crowd of some 300 or more people. I entered an order, which I've given to the clerk, adjourned to this facility so that we can conduct the proceedings as set out in your program. Again, I say, as the bailiff has announced, you're in court. Superior Court is in session. Your clerk, Jan Fuchel, is present. She is recording the minutes of these proceedings. My notes now tell me to recognize important people. As far as I'm concerned, the most important people due some recognition today are all the people who made it possible for this day to happen. The parents who have mortgaged their houses and their businesses and their lives to enable each new lawyer to chase a dream and catch that dream and be here before me. The spouses who have worked and sacrificed and have listened to the rule against perpetuities and some exciting description of the statute of frauds, and who suffered through the agonies of moot court and who've watched new lawyers vacillate between being brilliant and being suicidal in their study for the bar exam. Those are the important people, and those are the people that have caused this day to happen, and I hope for you new lawyers, those are the people that you've said thank you to. Those of you who will remain in Raleigh and Wake County in the 10th Judicial District will find that our county has surpassed all other North Carolina counties in size of our bar and in the number of the civil and criminal case filings that we have. We have well over 3,500 licensed attorneys currently practicing here. In that regard, it's now certainly my pleasure to introduce to you a person who obviously needs no introduction, the president of our bar, George Hearn, is president of the 10th Judicial District Bar and the president of the Wake County Bar Association, to bring you greetings from our bar and to thank the people who've planned this event and made this happen. When George finishes, I'll then introduce you to our speaker in just a moment. George?
Thank you, Judge Stevens, and may it please the court. Congratulations and welcome. This is a special day and this is a solemn occasion. As Judge Stevens recalled 1986, I thought about the 31 years that have passed since I sat where you're sitting, and it's just as special today as it was then for me. You know that each of you have traveled different routes to get here, but what unifies you today is that you are here embarking on your legal career. This event has been made possible by months and months of work by one of our special committees of the Wake County Bar Association. That committee is appropriately titled the Swearing In Committee, and it requires logistics, planning, meeting after meeting and after meeting. I want to especially thank Nan Hanna and Chris Jackson, the co-chairs of that committee, and if they are present, and I can't see them for the lights, I wish you would stand or at least raise your hand, Nan and Chris, if you're in the confines of the auditorium. They're outside so that someone else can have their space. I thank the 20-plus members of your committee who've worked so diligently. And it's not over for this committee when we conclude today, because they're working to plan our first United States Supreme Court swearing in which in January members of this bar will be presented to the court, and we hope that will be an annual occasion. For those of you who will live and practice in Wake County, by virtue of your membership in the North Carolina State Bar, you are automatically going to be enrolled as a dues-paying member in the 10th Judicial District Bar. You know the state is divided into judicial districts. However, it will take your voluntary act to be a member of the Wake County Bar Association, and I'm here today to say to you that That is one of the most important steps that I believe that you can do as a Wake County attorney. For those of you going to practice in other areas, please seek out and join your local bar and become active. This past May marked the 80th anniversary of the founding of the Wake County Bar Association. The initial membership in 1925 was 105. Today it's 1,967 and growing. Each month it grows more. The organization is still vital, and it's not vital simply because, oh, we need a bar association and we'll have one. It's vital because the members have deemed it extremely important to follow the creed and elements of the Constitution that were adopted in 1925. Today as then, we have resolved to promote a closer union and fellowship among Wake County's practicing attorneys and members of the judiciary. Obviously, that extends to lawyers in government, private practice, and in the practice of law as it might not have been envisioned in 1925. The founders also resolved to promote the ethics of the profession, and that is something that we take extremely seriously. It is not just given lip service. About 10 or 12 years ago, the association spent many months in developing a creed of professionalism. You will come into contact with that through the Wake County Bar Flyer. You will see it in lawyers' offices. You may even see it in courtrooms. It is a well-considered document. I commend it to you. I commend it to you to live it as well as read it. Finally, the original founders resolved to promote the principles of justice. That also is actively pursued through volunteer efforts, through promoting what lawyers do and do well in service to the community. The association has over 23 active committees, and currently at least 600 of our members meet and work regularly on a variety of matters, from public service to professionalism to athletic competition to social. The hallmark of this association has been the generosity of its members in giving of their time, talents, and service. I can think of no better recommendation to you lawyers today, particularly those who are going to stay in Wake County, to join this association, become active, embrace its principles, have a good time, and you will find what we believe, that this local bar association is, and not just because I say so, has been recognized as one of the premier local bar associations in the United States. We don't rest on our laurels. You are the lifeblood. We look forward to welcoming you into the membership. This occasion would not be possible without the support of businesses and institutions that sponsor this organization. Please indulge me while I recognize our two prominent sponsors. Our platinum sponsor, our sole platinum sponsor, is North State Bank, and I would like to recognize Mr. Steve Salisbury, the Senior Vice President of North State Bank, if he's here. Would you either stand or raise your hand, Mr. Salisbury? Let's give him a hand. The association has long promoted partnership with giving to the community, and we are the recipient of many generous gifts from institutions and businesses. Our gold sponsor is Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company. You will hear a lot about Lawyers Mutual, a fine corporate citizen, a fine institution, colleague, insuring many of us every day, waking and sleeping. Is there a representative of Lawyers Mutual Insurance Company here today to accept our thanks? If not, let's thank them with a round of applause anyway. There are a number of other sponsors that are too numerous to mention, but I thank them also, and we will extend our appropriate thanks to them. Again, our most sincere congratulations. Come join us. Come work with us. Ask us if we can help you. you'll find us to be very generous too. Thank you.
Thank you, George. We have a tradition since we've been doing this in Mass for the last 5 years to seek out the best of the best. It's sort of a brief, I don't want to say motivational speaker, but a brief speaker to you to talk to you about the journey that you're about to undertake as new lawyers. The person that I'm about to introduce you to today is a judge's judge. He's a lawyer's lawyer. He is a teacher of teachers. He is, in the view of most, the best of the best. If you are ever privileged to be in a courthouse where Charles Becton is trying a case, do yourself a favor. Stop by that courtroom and watch. It will make you proud of being a lawyer. It will make you proud of what you do and who you are. It will remind you, whether you've been practicing for a year or for 40 years, why you wanted to be a lawyer. It will re-energize you. It will renew your soul as a professional. And you will bear witness to a commitment to excellence. I guarantee it. Charles Becton received his BA degree from Howard University in 1966, his JD degree from Duke University School of Law in 1969. He received his LLM from the University of Virginia Law School in 1986. He's been a practicing lawyer since 1969, except for the 9 years that he served on, that we were privileged to have him serve on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, from the years of 1981 through 1990. His honors and his awards, I embarrass myself to even attempt to try to describe. He was the North Carolina Appellate Judge of the Year. He's been listed in Best Lawyers in America continuously since 1993. He's a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers and the American Board of Trial Attorneys, as well as a fellow of the International Society of Barristers. He currently holds positions as distinguished lecturer in the UNC Law School as well as the Duke Law School. He, as many of you know, has taught trial advocacy courses throughout the United States, and including in Canada and in South Africa. He received the Association of Trial Attorneys of America's. He's the recipient of the Roscoe Pound Foundation Award, which recognized him as the nation's best trial advocacy teacher. Many of you in this audience may have heard lawyer Wade Smith say, "For some among us, the practice of law is a calling. Those are the lawyers who have the gift." Charles Becton is one of those lawyers. He has the gift. He has the ability to connect to a jury, the ability to cause each juror to feel what he feels: compassion, sympathy, anger, outrage. Over the years, he and I have sat at opposite tables, representing opposite sides in cases. I've been privileged to preside over cases in which he's appeared. He has a great passion for justice. He has a great intolerance for injustice. He is a vigorous advocate who knows no fear, and at the same time, he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So we should all be pleased, and we certainly are, that he's agreed to come here and share his thoughts with each of you new lawyers about this journey into the law that you're about to take, and the one that you will begin today. Charles Becton, the jury is with you, sir, and it's a pretty good-looking jury.
May it please the court. If this were not a formal session of court, I'd hug you. I don't know much math, but I can do simple addition. And I know that pride plus preparation plus passion equals professionalism. I'm going to talk about that, but first, let me, on behalf of the lawyers of Wake County, welcome you to the grand and noble profession of law with its enormous personal and professional benefits and opportunities, and with its awesome responsibilities and obligations. Second, I want you to understand right here and now, we want you to practice law the same way we want you to live your lives, honorably, givingly, with integrity, tolerance, and a caring sensibility to the plight of the less fortunate. There's one other thing we want right at the outset. We want you to know that we want you to have a balanced life. Take time off from law to pamper yourselves, your families, and your loved ones. And let's now talk about pride and passion and preparation and unpopular cases. Russ Herman, and I've been thinking a lot about him lately, of New Orleans, often talks about Big Willie Thornton, a man charged with forgery who couldn't find a lawyer to represent him until Russ's father agreed to represent him. Russ feels proud as you and I should feel, every time he tells the story about the poem that Big Willie dictated and sent to Russ's father. The poem is entitled, Must I Gets a Lawyer? And I've actually seen it. I've seen him, the spelling of forgery, F-O-R-G-R-E-E. I've seen arrested spell R-E-S-T-E-D. And the poem reads, they arrested me for forgery, and I can't write my name. They arrested me for forgery, and I can't read or write. Judge, oh judge, can you make it right? They arrest me for forgery, judge. Judge, will you take care of me, or must I get the lawyer to come and talk for me? Or must I get the lawyer to come and set me free? Russ's father made a difference in the life of Big Willie, and that's the role of the advocate, to make a difference. We as advocates, among other things, must take the unpopular case. We must be thoroughly prepared, and we must love this profession with a passion. We must take the hard case, even if it's a small case. In many instances, advocates must make the argument in favor of the individual, the little guy, or the big guys will win by default. And there are times when advocates must risk disfavor and make the courageous stand to defend the unpopular, the have-not, and even the despised. I want you to consider a story of courage and commitment, the story of John Adams's defense of Captain Thomas Preston and the 8 British soldiers charged with murder of colonists who protested against British rule in 1770. All other lawyers in the city had refused, fearful for their own lives if they defended the redcoats. Plus, the case was difficult. Of the 96 witnesses prepared to testify, 94 of them made it appear that the fault lay entirely with the soldiers. But that's not all. John Adams was at the time considering a career in politics, but John Adams took that case. All 9 British soldiers were found not guilty of murder, though 2 were convicted of involuntary manslaughter. And you know the rest of the story. That case had no detrimental effect on Adams's career. He became a revolutionary leader and ultimately the 2nd president of the United States. Now, I, of course, could have used other famous cases to make the point. For example, Andrew Hamilton's defense of John Peter Zenger, who was charged with seditious libel in 1734. or Clarence Darrow's defense of Dr. Ozian Sweet in 1925, or Charles Hamilton Houston's or Thurgood Marshall's efforts in the late 1940s and the early 1950s in the school desegregation cases. Time won't permit me to review those wonderful cases with you, but to celebrate your passing the bar, you ought this week go online and read about those lawyers. You will see them fight passionately for justice. Why should you read it? Because the victims of the world look to us. Our deeds, like those of the great advocates of the past, will go forth when our bones are dust. To the wheelchair enslaved, they will speak hope. To the relatives of the brain damaged, they will bring comfort. To the frightened, battered victim, to the hopeless defendant who has been wrongfully accused, and to the anguished defendant who has to defend a frivolous lawsuit, they will bring relief and peace. And so, in the names of those who face injustice, we challenge you to build a freer, more responsible, more open society. We challenge you to get that passion, that zeal, that spirit of defiance that demands justice in every case. We challenge you to fight for contingency fees that give injured persons of modest means an equal opportunity in the courtroom. And like Horace Mann, and I quote him, we challenge you to be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. We want you to know the thrill of a verdict or a settlement that restores human dignity. We want you to remember the words of Edmund Burke, who said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing." And so, we want people to so respect you that they figuratively stand when you leave the courtroom, as people stood for Atticus Finch in Harper Lee's novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. We want you to have that sort of pride. And it won't be easy. It won't be easy for you to attain the Atticus Finch status today, because lawyers have been vilified and demonized and blamed for much of society's ills. But those who distort the truth, those who ridicule lawyers, fail to consider our rich legacy. They forget that lawyers have always fought to stamp out injustice and to preserve a system that is based on fairness and impartiality. Consider, 25 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were lawyers. 31 of the 56 signers of the Federal Constitution were lawyers. 29 of the 43 presidents of the United States have been lawyers. Well over half the senators and congressional representatives are lawyers. And approximately half of the governors in this country are lawyers. So those who vilify and demonize lawyers fail to consider that rich legacy. And they fail to consider the many sacrifices lawyers make to improve the lives of ordinary people. We serve our state and country like no other cadre of professionals. In any city, in any county, in any state throughout this nation, you will find countless lawyers performing the thankless task, generally without compensation, of serving on school boards and art councils and United Way boards and YW and YMCA boards and etc. No other group or profession can come close to lawyers when it comes to public service. And you know what? Society has chosen us as the problem solvers. What can be more flattering than to have people, I'm talking about strangers, entrust their freedom or fortune to our judgment? And think about law. It is by its very nature involved with tension and conflict and disagreement and trouble. Lawyers are in the middle and on top of and on the bottom and on the right and left of every minor and major controversy in their communities. Lawyers exist in an environment highly charged with emotion, with disappointment, with sadness, with pain, with suffering, and yes, with happiness. Is it any wonder that some people bash lawyers? Can you expect a product manufacturer to praise someone who finds fault with the design and function of its product? So while it may be easy to understand why people bash lawyers, you should nevertheless beam with pride that society has chosen the legal profession as its advocate when trouble strikes. We are freedom fighters and equalizers and avengers who redress wrong. We protect. We teach tolerance. We restore human hope and dignity. We hear the wails of hungry children and the hurt of ordinary people. And yes, we defend when a frivolous lawsuit is filed. And so, we who have gathered here today on either side of you are proud of you, and we commend you for your work, for your hard work in law school and passing the bar. Our hope is that you will be a voice for the voiceless, a partisan for the powerless, and a source of strength for those who suffer and are weak. And lest I be misunderstood today, it matters not what you plan to do in this wonderful profession, whether you become a personal injury lawyer, a corporate lawyer, an insurance defense lawyer, or whether you become a prosecutor, a public defender, or general practitioner. We welcome you to this noble profession where you can, in each of those jobs, affect progressive change and right the wrong that still exists in our society. Like soldiers, we must march on together. We are beckoned by Hammurabi, by Solon, by Cicero, by Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry, by Clarence Darrow and by Julius Chambers and others to thunder and rage for justice so that we may live and so that our children may inherit this wonderful land. Please understand, I need to finally talk to you a little bit more about professionalism because of the me culture that exists today. We are socially, culturally, and professionally more materialistic, more hedonistic, more self-absorbed than at any time in recent history. And I'm talking about all of us, not just those who demonize or vilify lawyers. We are part of the me culture. I want you to consider the camaraderie, the professionalism of the well-known 19th century lawyer who volunteered, hear me out, who volunteered to argue both sides of an appeal when his adversary could not afford to stay in town until the case came up in the Illinois Supreme Court. Here is the letter informing the adversary of the result. Quote, "My dear Mr. Bishop, the Supreme Court came in on the appointed day, and I did my best to keep faith with you. Apparently, I argued your case better than my own. For the court has just sent down a rescript in your favor. Accept my heartiest congratulations. Very sincerely yours, A. Lincoln." Abraham Lincoln. We commend that sort of professionalism to you. And we do it at a time when we know that the world is full of people who merely record the temperature of their environment. They do nothing to change it. They just report it. They just go along. They are, metaphoric, thermometers. We don't need you to be thermometers. We need you to be thermostats, lawyers who set the temperature and work to change it as necessary to reach the desired setting and result. And I share the advice that was shared with me during my first year of practice. The two best pieces of professional advice I ever received. One came from Jack Greenberg, the then director of the Legal Defense Fund in New York. as I contemplated leaving New York and moving to Greenville, North Carolina, to open a solo practice, Jack said, "Becton, 2 lawyers are 4 times better than 1. You will be alone in Greenville. Go to Charlotte with Julius Chambers. Having another lawyer there to brainstorm with will make you a better and a more competent lawyer." And so my advice to you is this: even though you are brilliant, find a mentor, and we have them here in this county, willing and ready to help you. Find a mentor, someone who will brainstorm legal issues with you, someone who will tell you where the potholes in the road are. Less than a month after Jack Greenberg gave me that good advice, I went to Charlotte to practice with Chambers, and I found Stein and Ferguson there. I had all sorts of advice. But Chambers' advice was this. Julius Chambers told me the first week I was there, try every case against every lawyer as if you would have to try every case against that same lawyer for the rest of your life. Did you hear what I just said? Try every case against every lawyer as if you'll have to try every case against that lawyer for the rest of your life. He said, that lawyer needs to know that your word is your bond, that you can be trusted. Be courteous, be civil, and be professional. Regrettably, you will, during the course of your career, run into lawyers who believe Chambers' advice is a sign of weakness. They're like George, the elementary school bully. You know, when the teacher asked the bully George, "What would your classmates think of you, George, if you were kind and polite and followed the rules?" George promptly responded, "They think they could beat up on me." Well, I'm telling you, civility, integrity, and professionalism are the hallmark of our learned calling. They are not signs of weakness. I know you will find lawyers who practice negative gamesmanship rather than positive professionalism, lawyers who engage in Rambo-type tactics, who seemingly intentionally misconstrue everything you say, and who would rather file Rule 11 and Rule 37 violations than eat ice cream. I want you, they will be there, but I want you to make sure you don't descend to that same level of negative practice with a tit-for-tat response. If you are well prepared, I mean well prepared, the Rambos will know that they can't beat up on you. I've been practicing law for 35 years, and I can recall only 2 or 3 times when I was ever in court to resolve a discovery dispute. So don't let anybody tell you that disputes can't be resolved in a just, dignified, courteous, and efficient manner. That leads me to my next bit of advice. You have worked too hard, come too far, simply to rest on your laurels of having passed the bar. The true professional thoroughly prepares his or her case. I have met all over this world thousands of lawyers, a lot more brilliant than I, but I can recall only 2 instances in which I have ever left the courthouse feeling that the other lawyer had out-prepared me. And I want you to be able to say that. I gave that client all I had. I'm telling you, that sort of professional pride in your work will make it easier for you to sleep at night, even when you've lost the case. So let me conclude. We who stand proud of you are here to help you. We hope we have made your task easier. We hope we have been good bridge builders. And we want you to make it easier for lawyers who come after you, like the bridge builder in Will Allen's famous poem. It's actually Will Allen Drumgoogle's famous poem, The Bridge Builder. And I close with that poem. An old man going a lone highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," said a fellow pilgrim near, "you are wasting strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You have crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you the bridge at the evening